Yo man, I'm trying to order some food right now. You hungry at all? Okay, cool. How about this right here? Crimean fried chicken? Never heard of it? Okay, maybe we could get some coffees from Starbucks? Didn't hear about that one either? What do you mean? Alright, seems like I have a lesson to teach you. Hello Blazers, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian. Hi guys, doing today? Welcome to a brand new video. In today's video guys, we're gonna be talking about bootleg companies, especially bootleg food chains in Russia. Now before we get into it, I need to clarify, no, Russia does have worldwide food chains like McDonald's, Subway, KFC, it goes on and on. We have a lot of Western food chains in here. It's not like a rare sight, even in provincial cities. However, there are two particular regions of Russia where that is just not the case, and those are the regions of Crimea and the region of Chechnya. And I think the most fascinating and the most interesting thing about all of this is that not only Western food chains or Western companies have bootleg versions or fake versions in those regions, but also Russian companies that are just governmental Russian companies that are working all throughout Russia. They don't exist in Crimea in particular. I think all of this is insanely fascinating, so let's get into it. Now first of all, let's talk about the reasons why certain companies like Russian governmental companies or Western food chains and Western companies, why do they just not exist in the regions of Crimea and Chechnya? Well, for Crimea it's pretty obvious, because as you guys know, before 2014 the region of Crimea used to be part of Ukraine, and essentially during the revolution in Ukraine, what happened is that Russia annexed the territory of Crimea and claimed it as their own. And of course Ukraine did not comply with it, and Ukraine does not accept the fact that Crimea belongs to Russia because they still claim Crimea to be theirs, and I guess it's rightfully so. And here's the thing, since the majority of the international community, most of the countries in the United Nations actually don't acknowledge Crimea to be part of Russia and they still acknowledge Crimea as part of Ukraine, it means that major companies that used to work in Crimea, major Western companies and as well as major Russian companies, those companies ended their business in Crimea altogether, basically either just to like make a stance and to stand with Ukraine or even against Russia in this, or basically just to evade sanctions. And as far as the region of Chechnya goes, I guess it's because like Chechnya is a really unique region because it very much is a part of Russia legally and geographically, but you know, technically it's kind of like a country of its own. And I guess nobody there is really interested in these Western food chains or Western companies. And also there's been a lot of talk about human rights violations in Chechnya, which I guess is also stopping companies from working in there. And so these are basically the reasons why most Western companies and a lot of Russian companies do not operate in Crimea in particular. In Chechnya it's mainly just Western food chains not operating. Russian companies actually work there because it's not a territory that's been stolen from anyone per se. Now let's get to the fun part, and first of all talk about food chains that don't exist in Crimea and Chechnya and what they're replaced with. Now I actually didn't know about this because initially when I heard of something like this, it was about actually Donetsk. You guys probably know that a large part of eastern Ukraine is actually currently not under full Ukrainian control, and there are two separatist so-called governments there right now, the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic, and so those territories are very similar to Crimea because all Western businesses do not exist there anymore. And so that is actually the first case I've heard of something like this, because instead of McDonald's in Donetsk they have Donetsk. What it is, it's literally just a complete carbon copy of McDonald's that is actually based on the same equipment that McDonald's used before it moved out of that city. They use the same suppliers, the same ingredients, the same machines, even the same restaurants that McDonald's used and where McDonald's used to be, but they just renamed everything and there you go. Donetsk is McDonald's in Donetsk. Well, the case is very much the same in Crimea. So first of all, the legendary CFC, Crimean fried chicken. It's literally just a complete carbon copy of KFC. They even have the exact same menu. They even have their own slogan. Instead of "so good," it's "I'm good here." Very patriotic. I've actually found this video on YouTube of this like bootleg bold and bankrupt who also is like a guy that tours around the ex-Soviet Union and you know knows Russian, but he's like English or whatever. And he actually went to the Crimean fried chicken restaurants. And by the way, the comments on that video are just complete cancer. It's all like Vatnik comments that are basically saying, "Yeah, screw KFC with all their Western MSG and GMOs. Crimean fried chicken, let's go! Go Russia! Go Putin! Go Crimea! USA! US!" You know, that's that type of bullshit, basically.
When it comes to sanctions, Crimea is winning. Crimea fried chicken is the winner. Crimea is the winner. cheers to sanctions from Crimea.
So yeah, CFC, Crimean Fried Chicken, that is very much a real restaurant. What's actually pretty funny as well is that Chechnya also has their own CFC, but unfortunately it's not Chechen fried chicken as you might expect, but it's actually just crispy fried chicken. But I think it would be cool if it was Chechen fried chicken. That sounds badass. Now as far as McDonald's and Burger King goes as well, those don't exist in Crimea and Chechnya either. So in Crimea, instead of McDonald's and instead of Burger King, you have Mir Burger and Burger House, apparently. So these are just like bootleg Burger King and McDonald's. In Chechnya, they don't have McDonald's either. Instead of it, they have a restaurant called Makovsky. It's literally like a complete copy as well. Like even the font they use is like the exact same. And yeah, their slogan, their motto is "I need it" instead of "I'm loving it." I want it, I need it to make me feel heated. That's pretty sick, I'm not gonna lie. And also guys, if you're craving a Starbucks coffee in Crimea, which you can get instead is a Starbucks coffee or a Starbucks coffee. So yeah, it's pretty funny, but here's the thing, right? I'm pretty sure that all of these restaurants that I've just mentioned, they're not at all related to the OG company. So CFC is not related to KFC. However, there are some food companies that I feel like are just complete new branches that are made by Russian food companies to just avoid sanctions. Okay, so there's this really big pizza chain in Russia called Dodo Pizza. It's like incredibly successful, and also they've actually opened some branches in the US and also in China, so they're actually worldwide now. And as you guys might expect, Dodo Pizza does not exist in Crimea. However, what exists instead of Dodo Pizza is Lolo Pizza. And man, with this one, I don't feel like they're even trying to hide anything, because like if you go on the Lolo Pizza website, it's the exact same as the Dodo Pizza website. The website is exactly the same, the menu is exactly the same down to like basically every single position. And as far as I understand, it's basically just a branch of the Dodo Pizza that they've literally just changed the name slightly, made a new website, a new company, and apparently this doesn't count as the same company anymore, so they will not get sanctioned by the US or Europe. This is just genius, okay? Now, apart from food chains, also a lot of Russian tech retailers, a lot of Russian grocery stores, grocery store chains, etc. also don't exist in Crimea because they're trying to avoid sanctions, I guess. And a lot of Russian companies have some sort of bootlegs replacing them. For example, there's a very big chain of like malls called Mega in Russian, and in Crimea, instead of Mega, they have Meganom. Or for example, there's the Russian version of Uber Eats, which is called Yandex Yeda, and in Crimea, instead of Yandex Yeda, they have Krim Yeda. Krim is Crimea in Russian. Or for example, like Russia's biggest internet provider company, Rostelecom, it doesn't exist in Crimea either. Instead of Rostelecom, they have Krim Telecom or Crimea Telecommunications. And I'm not even sure what these companies, to be honest with you guys, if they're actually related, because the websites kind of look different, but the names of the companies and everything, like, I think it's very obvious that these are probably like the same company, and they just opened like a new branch in Crimea to avoid sanctions, and nobody understands and nobody can catch them. In my opinion, the funniest thus far though is this company, there's this like private clinic healthcare chain in Russia called Invitra, okay? And they wanted to work in Crimea as well, right? So instead of Invitra, they became iVitro. Like even the logo is the exact same. Like they didn't even try. Yeah, let's just remove one letter and we're a completely different company. Don't sanction us, US government. These guys are amazing at what they're doing. Alright, so everything that we looked at so far were private companies, and it's understandable that those companies would try to evade sanctions, would try to avoid damaging their business by trying to work in Crimea, so they find loopholes to avoid it, basically, right? Now, however, we get into the real weird parts, which is Russian governmental companies they're like very much the basis of Russia as a country or whatever, and they're also doing the same thing, trying to avoid sanctions, which is just bizarre, and it doesn't really fit with the whole politics of, Crimea is ours, we don't give a fuck about what you Westerners and Europeans have to say, we make our own shit. You know, I think if you're annexing the territory of another country and you're trying to act all smug about it and saying like, hell yeah, this is ours now, we don't care what people say, you know, you should just open a branch in Crimea with the same name from the same company and, you know, epically dunk on Europeans and Ukrainians, right? But no, that's not what they're doing at all. So, okay, let's get to the first one, which actually shocked me. It's the fact that Crimea does not have Russian posts. They have their own post called the Crimean Post. They have their own websites, their own tracking system, their own logo, their own everything, and apparently, according to Wikipedia, they're a governmental institution within the federal subject of Crimea within Russia, but they're not related to the Russian Post whatsoever. Now here's the thing, I already knew before that Crimea is actually like a place nobody wants to deliver to. Like in most online stores, when you put Russia as your delivery country, you usually get a notification that we don't deliver to Crimea, because literally nobody delivers to Crimea. It's like an exclusion zone that nobody likes or something, I don't know. So if you live in Crimea, no drip for you, bro. So I already knew that, but I actually just assumed that Crimea has the Russian Post just like the rest of Russia, but it doesn't. It's a completely different company. And this just shocked me once again, like why? My guess here is that, you know, obviously the Russian Post actually works very closely with other postal services from other countries with like customs and everything. And I guess if the Russian Post just opened its office in Crimea, it would get sanctions, and then the entirety of Russia wouldn't be able to, you know, receive any packages whatsoever. I guess that's the case, so that is why they had to create an entire fake company in Crimea and called the Crimean Post. It's just so stupid. And the next governmental company that was actually very surprised to find out was not in Crimea is the Russian Railways. And in Crimea, there's no such thing as the Russian Railways. There's only KZD, or Crimean Railways. And also, if you read about it, it's also listed as like a, you know, legally governmental federal company that is, you know, within the subjects of Crimea, within Russia. However, it's not related at all to Russian Railways, which is actually also a Russian governmental company. And it's just so bizarre once again, because I just automatically assumed that, yeah, I mean, if they included Crimea as part of Russia, it's been like 6 years now, right? It's been 6 years, you know, they've surely have already integrated everything, but no, they haven't. And like such a basic fundamental thing as the Russian Railways does not exist in Crimea. There's Crimean Railways. My guess here once again is that basically this was done in order to, you know, evade sanctions, because the Russian Railways actually have some trains, some routes that actually go into Europe, I guess, and maybe if the Russian Railways opens in Crimea, I guess Europe would impose some sort of sanctions that would limit, you know, the routes that trains of Russian Railways can go. And, you know, all of this was like a real shock to me, because I didn't think this was a thing, and I didn't really even think that people had to go through such loopholes to just open like branches of Russian governmental institutions in Crimea. It's really hard, right? I bet it's really hard for these guys. You know, in order to improve the situation, my suggestion would be, you know, not steal other countries' lands to the point where, you know, the entire world community hates you and does not approve of your actions, so that you opening up a new branch of your governmental company leads to you receiving sanctions, which would ruin the entire operation of that company. Maybe just not steal another country territory next time. Maybe that would help you to have your business as intended. But I don't know, that's just me talking out of my ass. What do I know about politics? I'm not as smart as our glorious leaders. But yeah guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. And also guys, hopefully you found out something new from this video, and hopefully your next choice of restaurants will be Crimean fried chicken. Support our economy, please. And once again guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please make sure to slap the like button on it as well. Guys, if you want to support my channel, make sure to go over to down in the description to my Patreon link. If you guys support me, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, you get invited to my Discord, which is pretty cool. So yeah guys, hopefully you did enjoy this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.